International business experience, 17 years. We own a factory overseas in Poland. I've done business in Russia, I've done business in Greece, Sweden, you name it. We sell cars all over the world. And I hope to use those extensive business contacts that I have, international businessmen, to entice them to come to Utah to do business, because this is a great state with great people, great workers, a great educated workforce. Fight for the repeal of HB 116, Utah's amnesty law. I would fight for the clarification on 477, which was a poorly written bill. It was the Utah's grandma bill. I would fight for our natural resources, frankly, to push back with all legal means possible in the federal government to be able to get access to our natural resources. We have 5% royalties, the state does, from those natural resources that are used for our school trust funds, and that we could lower our property taxes, we could lower our income taxes, which of course will grow the job base here in the state. Like I say, we can do much better than we are here in the state. I think we need to work with the media, because the media is really the people who are making the vast majority of the grandma requests here in the state. We need to work with the people of the state. And frankly, you need to work with the legislature. We should be looking at the laws, and especially the federal issue. How do they handle it with federal employees? How do they handle it with federal legislators? Our legislation should be modeled on very good legislation, not on things that are not transparent. We should have openness and transparency in government as much as is possible. And there are very, very few things which, frankly, I think should be locked up behind closed doors. Certainly, dealing with terrorist attacks, I understand that a very small chance that will happen, but certainly the government should be prepared for that. Issues of CDC, Centers for Disease Control, I understand that. Beyond that, there's really not much that the government should be hiding from its people, especially like we just went through a redistricting process here in Utah, and your fundamental right as a citizen is to be represented by somebody, either a state legislator or a state senator or a congressional rep or a senator in Congress. And how were those lines drawn? Why were those lines drawn? What was the process that we went through to get to that? Those are fundamental issues that every citizen, every person in the state of Utah has a right to know, how we arrived at these conclusions and how these lines were drawn. And that is what I would commit to, a very open and very transparent government. I think the government that's open and transparent is the government that will govern the best. We touched briefly on 116. 116, I'm very opposed to 116 for a number of issues, many reasons that many people haven't heard yet or and they don't quite understand. Even legislators who signed the bill don't understand it. There's a $218 million tax increase hidden on the last page of the fiscal note. Again, we can come back to openness and transparency. I'm opposed to squandering our very scarce resources, both in time and money. We caused a lot of angst in the party, caused a lot of angst on the Hill, on issues that frankly are the purview of the federal government. We shouldn't have spent so much time on this when really you can't have 50 different immigration laws with 50 different states. We have to have one. That's why this is a federal issue. That said, I would work very closely with our federal delegation, both our senators and our congressmen, to get to a reasonable solution on the immigration question. But it really isn't a state question. It's a question for the federal government to decide. I hadn't thought about that. But as I think about a veto philosophy, I would veto things that were unconstitutional. I mean, beyond that, I don't know what else I could add. I would not be for expanding government. I would try to get back to the original intent of the Constitution, try to get back to the original intent of how government is formed and why it's formed and what it should do. The government that governs best, it truly is the government that governs the least and leaves the people as free as possible. And that is really where the veto power, I guess, that's what I would be doing. That's where I would have it. Again, I have extensive contacts throughout the world. We've built 800 vehicles, sold them all over, and that includes the United States as well. Very successful businessmen that we sell our products to. I would entice them and bring them to come, encourage them to come to the best state in the country. We have a great workforce here, very educated, and I would try to lower taxes and make the regulations as fair and even as possible so that businesses can plan. what happens when laws are changing and there are favors for some and not favors for others, then the businesses can't plan because they don't know what's coming down the pike. What you have to do is make it fair, open, and transparent. And I promise you, if that happens, the businesses will flourish here in Utah. That being the case, it will create more jobs. The more jobs that are created, the happier the people will be.